I had the same friend since kindergarten, and we became very close in high school. When we graduated, she began dating another friend of ours, and they had 2 children together. We moved through life alongside each other through marriage and her children. Later, I met and married my husband, and we got pregnant with our son. My husband and she were friendly, but never really spent much time together. When I had my son, I had a traumatic birth and C-section, and postpartum hit me hard. I withdrew and closed myself off to anyone except my sister-in-law and my mother. My sister-in-law stayed with us because of the trauma I experienced and was unable to care for my son alone for a bit, and my mother took over night care. My friend would call me, and I wouldn't answer. She tried to come over once, and I asked my sister-in-law to tell her I was sleeping. I just didn't want to see anyone. She began calling my husband to see why I was ignoring her. Later, I learned they continued phone calls after I became suspicious when he would go to the bathroom after his phone would ring only once, or when I could feel the bed vibrate early in the morning, and of course, he would never leave his phone around. I finally did what I always said I wouldn't do and looked at his messages. I found out that their relationship had turned into them telling each other they loved each other and wanted to leave me and her husband. I called her husband and explained what I found. I don't know how that went down, but they are still together. I left my husband, but my pride and fear of people knowing brought me back home, and eventually she came to my home and apologized and said they never had a physical relationship and asked if we could be friends again. Fool me once, right? This took place over about 6 months. A few months later, I started seeing the pattern again, and I learned that it had started up again, except this time my husband was not reciprocating. This led her to begin stalking us. She keyed my car, followed us, and got into our gated community. She even went as far as to tell me they had sex in my bed. However, she gave me a specific date and time, and I was actually in my bed then. Finally, it was all over. My husband and I went to counseling and moved on. About a year after the last incident, my husband was diagnosed with testicular cancer and passed away 4 days before our son's 5th birthday at 35. This brings us to 12 years later, and I've remarried. I see her everywhere constantly, but we don't speak. Recently, we had a school reunion, and she brought one of her daughters over to me and told me her daughter wanted to meet me. She told her daughter, "She used to babysit you all the time." Because her daughter was with her, I didn't say anything I would have liked to, and I just said, "Yes." I did, and I left. My husband says that was her trying to be friends again, and I got upset with him and accused him of not being on my side. I'm right. Right? Asterisk, asterisk. I guess I should clear up that I'm not actually upset with him. It was more of a, "Hey, whose side are you on anyway?" type of thing. I guess I'm really asking if I made it too much of a bigger deal than it actually was, and I'm holding a grudge for no real reason, or if it's even fair anymore if he isn't here to share the blame. Now, here are the comments. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Your husband was just making an observation, but obviously she's a trigger for you as she had an emotional affair with your deceased husband. I think you wanted him to say what a psycho she is, but he's not emotionally invested in the situation like you are. Hence just the observation. Even though you've moved on and you're used to seeing her around, the fact that she had the audacity to approach you with her daughter, which made you unable to say what you wanted, maybe left you feeling powerless. And that's what's bugging you. Comment 2. Your husband should not be the target of your anger. As for your former friend, she is a piece of poop. But carrying this rage is hurting you and apparently your relationship with your husband too. You need to get counseling to help you let go of this anger. You never have to be friends with her again or even like her, but stop hurting yourself because of her. I've heard it put this way. Holding on to hatred is like swallowing poison and expecting it to kill the other person. Comment 3. Comment. Your current husband is not on her side from that one little comment. You gotta be careful bringing all this unresolved poop and pointing it at him. You are not the idiot in regard to your former best friend. You don't have to be friends or make up, ever. You are, in my opinion, the idiot for overreacting and saying your husband is on her side. I'd go back into counseling if I were you until seeing her in your town doesn't affect you. Now, for the next story. Almost all states have Good Samaritan laws that protect medical professionals if they help in the event of an emergency. It excludes scenarios where the medical professional was negligent or malicious in some way. Last year, one of my coworkers got sued. We live outside of a big city, and she saw a pileup and stopped to help. A man died due to his injuries, and his widow took my coworker to court, saying that the way she provided care was negligent, basically. It was a whole ordeal. My coworker won the case, but had to spend a ton of money on a lawyer. It financially screwed her, even though she did the right thing. Recently, I stopped at the gas station on the way to work to go in and get an energy drink. I was wearing my scrubs, so when a man waiting in line had a heart attack, everyone just expected me to step in. His wife asked me to help him, and I told her to call 911 and stay with him till the EMTs get there, and to do compressions if he stops breathing. I feel like the advice I gave matched what I would have done if I stayed. I started leaving, and she started crying, and a few people criticized me. I mentioned it to my coworkers, and they all have been fiercely debating it. Everyone's split on it. I should mention, we live in a state where there are no legal obligations from healthcare workers as long as you're not that person's doctor. My perspective is that until the laws truly protect us, I don't want to risk getting sued. I'd probably not lose in court, but I can't afford $10,000 in lawyer fees. Also, I gave solid advice. Am I the idiot here? Now, here are the comments. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Retired RN. It's a sad reality that laws to protect Good Samaritans are woefully inadequate. While you may win the lawsuit, you still suffer financial consequences. At the very least, you lose time at work, and in all probability, you'll be responsible for your attorney's fees. I stopped at a car accident very early in my career. Everything worked out fine. The injured person made a full recovery. But I worried for weeks that I might get sued. I decided going forward, any help I gave would be limited to calling 911. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Ex-ER nurse here. I wouldn't stop at all. It's too scary and stressful. I once stopped and checked on a guy that had just jumped from my building and landed on the back steps where I was walking in. I was in scrubs and my badge was out, so I had to check for a pulse. There was none. The cops took my information and said they would call me if they needed me. This made me feel super uneasy, and I started taking my badge off and wearing an undershirt from then on. Comment 3. Not the idiot. I got sued personally at my last job for doing something they themselves told me to do. They covered it all, but it was very stressful for 2 years being harassed by constables trying to serve me and knowing someone was lying about the situation. In your situation, I might have stayed, though, to coach them, but I wouldn't have touched the man. Not sure, ... IT quote. It's definitely a hard situation to be in. Now, for the next story. We've been together for 10 months, lived together, and argue pretty frequently about different things, but this time the line was definitely crossed. The story starts with his car getting towed. We don't know why, and he's upset. I know it sucks getting your car towed, so I offered to give him a ride, help out however I can, and continued to be nice to him despite him not being very nice to me. I take him there. We wait until he gets to the front of the line. Then he tells me to take him to his mother's so he can get money, then the bank to deposit it, which is 30 minutes away. So I take him to do that, and he's still being rude to me, saying it's my fault his car got towed, how I took the easy way out, which I guess is defined as paying my $8 monthly parking fee on time, blaming me for what's out of my control. At this point, it's been about 3 hours. He still hasn't thanked me for what I did, and I felt unappreciated. After the bank, we agreed his mom should take him back to the tow place, so I started heading back that way. I then asked him what the address was, and he said he didn't know. I asked, "You don't know where your mom lives?" And he replied, "At least I have a mom." For context, my mother committed suicide when I was 3 years old, and my father just passed away in June. Their deaths are something I'm still coping with. So when he said that, my witch switch flipped on and I pulled the car over, telling him to get out and walk. I understand that didn't help the situation at all, and he had the right to be angry to begin with, but his car being towed was completely out of my hands, and I don't think I deserved to be treated that way. Literally not even an hour before we figured out his car was gone, we were out shopping and laughing and all around having a good day. The comment was unnecessary in my opinion, but maybe I should have just cut him some slack and given him a ride. Am I the idiot? Asterisk update. Asterisk. I've been getting a lot of feedback for this post, mostly positive, which I really appreciate. I want to give an actual update once some real action has taken place. As of right now, we are broken up. I don't plan on forgiving him, and he will be moving out as soon as the necessary papers are signed. Thank you, Reddit, for giving me the wake-up call I needed. Now, here are the comments. Comment 1, ONGT. He had the right to be angry to begin with. I've reread your post several times, and I can't figure out what exactly he had the right to be angry about at you. He's not nice to you, your own words, you argue frequently, and he uses you as his emotional punching bag to vent his anger. Please consider not letting him back into your car, or life. Not the idiot for kicking him out of your car. Only the AH to yourself, if you continue to put up with his bullshit. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Dump that dude. You already said you argue a lot, and he's not willing to accept responsibility for something that is his fault. Then he wants to insult and shame you to boot. FYI. If you ever get pregnant by him, he won't accept that responsibility either. He sounds like a real piece of something, and it was smart for you to kick his entitled ass out on the side of the road. Comment 3. Not the idiot. He had the right to be angry? No, he did not at all. You were trying to help him, and the whole time he was unappreciative. Put the comment on top of that, which is a horribly rude comment and kind of disgusting. You've got yourself a pure idiot. Kick him to the curb, literally and figuratively. Dump his grumpy ass. You did right. Don't put up with it any longer. Now, for the next story. In 2008, I moved to the US from the UK as my American ex wanted to go home and wanted to raise our child there. I didn't really want to go, but as I wanted to be a part of my kid's life, I did. She was 1 year old then and nearly 16 years old now. We split up after a couple of years, but I stayed and tried to make it work, despite being miserable. Then, my ex met her now husband, and they married in 2013. After 6 years, they asked if he could adopt her in 2019. I really didn't want to, but they are really well off, and I couldn't really fight it. More importantly, my daughter wanted it because they were having a kid and she wanted to be a part of a family. They all assured me that she wanted to be a part of my life and it wouldn't change anything. I could see her when I wanted, etc. So, in 2020, COVID happened and I wasn't able to see her in person much at all, despite trying to keep a relationship over video call and email, etc. Then, in 2021, they moved to the East Coast from California to be close to the husband's family. Again, despite assuring me she'd still want to see me, she hardly ever came back and always expects me to go there. She always cancels plans to come to California. I do go there, but it's always really awkward as I'm always around his family, and they make loads of ignorant jokes about my race and nationality. I last went in 2022, and my daughter couldn't be bothered to see me that much. She was supposed to come with me back home to the UK on holiday for my 40th, and to see my family a couple of weeks ago, but didn't want to and wasn't happy. I declined to go there instead and see her and her new family. So I went back home myself and am currently at home at the moment and am loving it. I spent my birthday with people I feel do love me, and I'm seeing my parents all the time. Their health isn't great, so I can see them while I still can. Basically, I have had a hard time in the US with work and had 2 jobs for many years. But about 6 years ago, I fell into a job that I'm good at. So when I came home, I got reacquainted with an old friend whose wife works in a company that's expanding and is recruiting for a role in my field that I can do with my eyes closed. So I've had an interview and basically have the job. I start whenever I want, the money's great, and I have loads of perks like a company car. Plus, it's in the city where I grew up. My uncle has a house here I can stay in, practically rent-free, until I find somewhere. So, as you can imagine, I'm really happy. I don't have many ties in the US anyway, not loads of friends. I have a girlfriend, and I've spoken to her, and she's willing to try long distance for a bit. My daughter messaged me yesterday asking if she can chat out of the blue, so I accepted. She asked how my trip is going, and I told her, "Really well, I've got a job, and I'm coming back home." She was all upset, but I was trying to reassure her that it changes nothing and she can still come and see me when she wants, or I can go there. It's not really that much further than the distance between there and California anyway. She wasn't having any of it. Later on, I got a call from my ex saying how upset my daughter is, saying I abandoned her. My ex said I should reconsider as I do have family there. Them. I said, "We're not family anymore. I only ever go to make up the numbers." She was trying to lecture me, as she usually does when we argue, so I told her I can't deal with it and hung up. Later on, my daughter put something on her social media saying how upset she is. I know maybe it must be hard, but I can't see how she can be upset. She hardly bothered with me the past 3 years. Plus, I don't see why I should put my life on hold anymore, as I've done that for 15 years and it's made me miserable. Am I the idiot for not discussing it and moving? If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!